Hi, everybody. Welcome inside the CrossFit Update Studio. I'm Sean Woodland with these two guys. There's just a bunch of hijinks and tomfoolery over here. Rory McKernan and Tommy Marquez. Caleb Banfield is going to be here in just a second as well to run down all things social media. But week number 1 of the 2018 Reebok CrossFit Games Regionals is now behind us. We have had a little bit of a day to sort of digest and think about what we saw. And I think overall, there were some things that definitely went as expected, but we certainly had our fair share of surprises.
Yeah, one of those surprises being that 50% of the qualifying field as far as individuals are concerned weren't at the CrossFit Games last year. You take that a step further, we have 10 rookies that have already gotten their way to Madison by way of qualifying. Last year, just for reference, we only had 21 total. So right now we're on pace for 30, which is going to blow that number out of the water.
Some of those rookies, I can already tell, some of my new favorite athletes. Sorry for drawing notes on you. I just had so much fun this weekend that I didn't want it to end. And I got to say, like with this kind of a regional weekend start, like let's just hope that it's all still uphill because it was an amazing competition.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to watch. Weeks 2 and 3 are going to be fun as well. Here's what we have on tap for you during our live show. I want to thank you for joining us here on Facebook. We're going to recap Europe, East and the South. Caleb Banfield will give us the social media highlights from each of those regionals, and then we'll go through the event records as they stand after week number 1. So let's start in Europe. It was Europe North and Europe Central for the Europe Regional. It was in Berlin, Germany. 5 men, women, and teams going to the 2018 Reebok CrossFit Games. And on the women's side, Annie Thorisdottir wins her regional for the first time since 2014. Laura Horvath will be making her first trip to the CrossFit Games. Sarah Sigmundsdottir and Kristen Holte, both Games veterans, and Camilla Salmonson-Hellman has been to the CrossFit Games on a team, but this will be her first appearance as an individual. I want to talk about 2 women who both exceeded our expectations. Annie Thorisdottir, I think we knew was going to qualify, but I certainly did not expect her to win the whole thing.
Yeah, well, I think her win is really indicative of some successes to come, because if you look at her history, this is her 6th regional title, but more importantly, since we standardized programming in 2011, the 3 times that she's previously won her regional competition, she's gone on to podium. That's back-to-back titles in 2011 and 2012, and then a 2nd place finish in 2014. So to see her back on top certainly gives a good indication of success at the Games looking forward.
Let me just repeat what Tommy said. 6th regional gold medal, and she adds another thing to her repertoire of her amazing trophy case, which is a 9th trip to the CrossFit Games. There are only 3 women, 2 of them after this weekend, who can claim that, and Annie just seems to be in best form ever. I love the fact also that she entered the final day in 3rd. She didn't have it locked down. A 2nd and a 1st, including an event record to get her onto the top of the podium. Just all-time weekend for her.
She only beat Laura Horvath by 4 points, and Laura Horvath was a woman who I think we all expected this might be the year. She might get in there like 5th, maybe 4th. I don't think we expected her to finish 2nd and almost beat Thorisdottir for the top of the podium.
A bit of surprise, Sean, but give yourself some props. You're the one that called Laura Horvath. Sean came back from the Meridian Regional a couple years back and said, this girl is going to be a star, keep your eye on her, and she certainly didn't disappoint this weekend. I really want to focus on who she did this against and where she did it. The who, Annie Thorisdottir, Sarah Sigmundsdottir, Kristen Holte, who combined have won 6 of their last 7 regional competitions, all 3 in the top 10 last year, multiple podiums amongst them. She competed against the best in the sport, and where Europe has a tradition of sending podium athletes to the Games. 9 podiums to be exact since 2011 when we standardized programming again. That's more than any other women's regional. So, I mean, she's holding her own and could be the next in line for this.
Let me take a pat on the back away from myself, because I was there when we first saw Laura, and for 2 years I put a lot of hope into her. She had some really bad events. Strict muscle-ups were terrible for her, handstand push-ups, things that we didn't see yet, so I'm not ready to hang a gold medal, get a medal on her yet at the Games. However, what we saw, and reaching out to her on social media, she said event number 4 in particular with the burpees were an event where she didn't expect to do well. She took 4th. Fantastic finishes across the board for her.
Yeah, she is definitely an up-and-coming athlete there in the Europe Regional and also on the world stage. On the men's side, a lot of surprises here in Europe. First being Roman Krenikov wins the regional 500 points. This is the first time he's ever been to the regional competition. 2 rookies going to the CrossFit Games. He's won. The other also from Russia. That's Andrei Ganin, who finished in 4th place. Moonweiler, Hogberg, and Gudmundsson all going back to the CrossFit Games. We'll get to Gudmundsson here in a second, but who is Roman Krenikov? Well, I'm glad you asked. He's 23 years old. He's at a Sever CrossFit in St. Petersburg, Russia. His open ranking was nothing to write home about, and he had 5 top 5 finishes this past weekend in events at the Europe Regional. how did we miss this kid?
Well, I mean,
How would you not?
he's only been doing CrossFit 2 years. And this was his first regional appearance, so I guess it's understandable that we would miss the fact that he might just show up and win. And more importantly, I talked to a couple of his coaches. He works with the Brute Strength crew. He's been working with Adrian Conway and Chris Hinshaw the last few months or so, and this is what stood out to them. He doesn't do individualized programming. He just signed up, do their competitors program, but they said that's what makes him special. He doesn't need the special program. He just puts his head down and works really hard. They said he's crafted his life around making it to the CrossFit Games, and he surprised everyone with a fantastic performance.
And let's update that. 793 in the graphic is from his first Worldwide Open last year. This year, 134th. And you got to remind people that in his first Open ever, Matt Fraser took 192nd. So while it is indicative of your capacity, we have to do regionals because the test has to be drawn out over different stages for that reason, right? But yeah, Krennikov comes out of nowhere, surprises everyone. I'm just excited to see him in a games environment now where the test gets even deeper and we can see what he can really do.
Obviously, he's a huge surprise there in Europe. Another one was Björgvin Carl Gudmundsson, the guy we all thought was just going to run away with this regional. He had to really fight to get himself back in. After day one, Björgvin Carl Gudmundsson was in 19th place overall, and then we found out that he wasn't exactly 100%. He was nursing a little bit of a prior knee injury that had flared up on him. But then in event 3, he gets himself into 6th place, hung out there through 2 events, and then after event 4, he was then in 5th place, and that is where he finished up. So Björgvin Carl Gudmundsson has had some very impressive performances at regionals. Last year comes to mind, but I think this one is even more impressive just because of how he did it and because he was not 100% all weekend long.
I totally agree, Sean, and I like seeing big-name athletes have to deal with adversity, getting punched in the mouth, and let's see what you're made of from there on out. Anyone who's familiar with sports knows that it's very easy to keep momentum going when everything is going your way, when the ball is rolling the right direction. But when sometimes you have to deal with things that you maybe didn't prep for, an injury, an illness, a variety of other factors that pop up that affect sport, being able to bounce back, recollect yourself, and dial it in when it's most important is the true sign of a champion. I think Björgvin showed that.
Björgvin actually echoed what both of you guys are saying himself, and he said, above all, even though I've won the region by over 100 points, this is my favorite victory because of the position that I was put in and because of the fact that I had to battle back. 19th to 6th in virtually one event on the event that actually put him in the bad situation to begin with is absolutely phenomenal. We called him kind of a cyborg before. We knew that he had the mental mindset of a monster, but this tells me that he's actually even stronger than I had thought before. And when he comes to the CrossFit Games healthy, look out.
Yeah, I would not let his 5th place performance fool you. He will definitely be a factor in Madison, Wisconsin. Finally, the team qualifiers from the Europe Regional. They sent 5 teams to the 2018 Reebok CrossFit Games. The Max Bull Spartans, they win with 476 total points. They're heading back to the CrossFit Games. A couple other familiar names up there as well in CrossFit Fabriken and Team Butcher's Lab, but Max Bull Spartans, they sit atop the overall leaderboard after 6 events there in Europe. They're coming back to the CrossFit Games. What impressed you the most about them?
Well, really how they dialed things in on day number 3. And I think the team competition in general out in Europe this weekend was really categorized by some volatility, and it was exemplified by Max Bull's finishes in the first couple of days' events. A 16th, then an event win. A 13th and an event win. But they closed each day out with an event win on the Worm, which is a pretty cornerstone implement as far as the team competition is concerned. And on the final day, both events inside the top 5 to give themselves the overall lead and to go back to the CrossFit Games with a little bit more experience now.
I just want to be a little bit more CrossFit kumbaya about this. I love to see the proliferation of the sport across the world. We saw the Russians coming in. Remember, this is the first Norwegian team to ever represent Norway at the CrossFit Games. Now we have 2 Norwegian teams. These were 4 of the members from the original team. They lost their strongest female and still win the region. That really bodes well for them, not just this year, but moving into the future as well.
It was a great day to watch competition on Sunday, also Saturday and Friday. The entire weekend was a blast. Kayla Banfield was not only watching the competition, but she was also watching everything that was going on social media, and she has been even doing that this week. So let's send it over to Kayla Banfield with the best of social media from Europe.
Thanks, Sean. I feel like I'm doing a million things at once. I'm on Facebook answering questions. I'm looking at photos, but it's all in good fun. Lots of people logging in, lots of people saying hello. Just a quick reminder, though, we are answering questions. So if you have any questions, please place them on the comments and we'll do our best to get back to them. Let's have a look at some of the top photos coming out of the Europe region. The first picture is of a very relieved Lucas Hoberg, who didn't make it last year, but thankfully qualified this year. Another one of our qualifiers, BKG, who said he decided to make it an interesting competition this year, and that he did. The next photo is an awesome one from Soyuz CrossFit, and this reminds me of the photo of Annie and Frederick last year, except between two teammates this year. Camilla, who is our 5th qualifier, loves fighting side by side with her fellow competitors. And one of my favourite moments from this weekend was all of the athletes' selfies. So here's Sarah Sigmundsdottir handing back a phone, and we saw lots of selfies coming through this weekend, which was awesome. Now that's it for the photos from the Europe region, but I will be back a little bit later. So as I said, if you have any questions, please post them on Facebook. A question for the guys at the desk. And let me just find where it is because I've written so many down. Brian Gillian Carter said, Kayla, how do you think Katrin's scores would have compared to Annie's?
That's a good question, and we will actually be able to show you that information a little bit later in the show. So you're going to want to stick around when we're done summarizing the last 2 regionals. You will be able to get that information. If you want to go find that now, go to games.crossfit.com. You can go to the regional leaderboard, and in the section where it says regionals, select all regionals, and then just click on the event, and it will show you who has the event record and how all the competitors stack up against each other from this past weekend. It's a pretty cool feature.
Yeah, and practically it's just a thought experiment, right? When we talk about inter-regional competition, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. These guys just need to get themselves to Madison, and they only have to do that with the athletes they're competing against, but it is really fun to stack them up and rank them against one another and see, okay, where would it actually have happened?
Nothing wrong with a little fun, right?
No, not at all. And that's what we do. We love the numbers and we love stacking up the data, and that's exactly what you can do at games.crossfit.com on the regional leaderboard. Thank you, Kayla.